会出来的。
Cold weather. It's chilly outside. It's cold, chilly. Okay. Shenyang is there, yeah? Jinyan? Yeah. Monsi. Xi'an is there. Jian. Shinze. Yuanzhang. I saw Yuanzhang. Yeah, Yuanzhang. Okay. So, you know, in the last, let's see what this is. So remember, in the last class we did the login flow. Okay, just want to go through it because I think you should know this for the login flow. So study this a little bit. I mean, it's sort of self-explanatory, but let's just look at something. So if the user is not authenticated, what do? We send the user to the sign-in view. Right? We send, so this is, if it's not authenticated, this is the entry point. We send to sign-in view. If he's authenticated, he goes to home. This is the entry to our app. Right? So this is one check that the router does, sending the user to sign-in view. Now, in the sign-in view, if the user says, I have an account, and I know the password, then I make an attempt to sign in. If I have an account and oops, I made a mistake in this page. You know the password. So if you don't know the password, it should go here. I'm missing a line here. If you don't know the password, you go to the password reset view, right? and then you attempt a password reset. If you've success in attempting your password, you entered your email correctly and everything. If not, you go back to the reset view. If you're succeeded, you get an alert to check your email, and then you go back to the sign-in view, right? So, I mean, it's actually quite a complex flow if you think about it, right? If you think about the entire flow, it's quite a complex flow. So now, where and how did I do this flow? I think this is something that you should, because I went back and tried to do this in the best possible way, and I figured out that Figma actually is a very good resource for it. So this is called the Figma Jam. Okay, I don't know if you guys played with this, but this is quite powerful in creating these things. For example, from the no password, we're going to create a view to password reset. But because this line is a little bit not so clear, you can put here, for example, no. I think, yeah, no. So that would be updating the thing. So this tool, whenever you need to do a complex sort of like a flow chart like this, it seems like this tool is much better than doing it with Google Slides, or some people use, I don't know, other tools. But I think this is quite nice to do it. And okay, coming back to the flow, if you know the password, attempt sign in, and if you succeed, right, this line, yes, you go to home. If you don't succeed, which is this line, you go back to sign in view. So maybe we can put these things a little bit further apart, like this, for better visibility. Okay, but so this view, I mean, I don't want you to know this thing by heart, but at least part of it, we should be able to say, okay, what is the case? I have an account. I know the password. I have an account, I don't know the password, right? There are two cases. I know the password, I attempt to sign in, I succeed, and I don't succeed, I go back to that page, etc. So back to the sign-in view to try to sign in. So this flow chart is something that you should spend some time on understanding. It's because for many different type of, this is a good exercise to think of this flow chart, okay? Because you're going to have many complex problems. When you think about a payment, okay? Think about a payment where the guy, you will have to give the person the option to pay with PayPal, the option to pay with, installment payments of Amazon or whatever, of Klarna, or I don't know if they have Klarna in this country, but or Visa or debit card or bank payment, etc. All of these things, they will have such complicated flows. I mean, if you know how to do this flow chart like this, I think it will make your life very easy in defining the problem, because some of you are going to become developers, some of you are going to become product people, right? Some of you will become QA people. So it's important to get used to these type of tools. Any questions? No questions. Okay. I see Satya has come in. Where is he? Anybody else come in that I haven't ticked yet? Okay. All right. If you don't have any questions on this, I'm going to put the updated one into the GitHub. But if you don't, then I will go on to testing. Okay? So how do we test our apps? How do we make sure that every time we add something new to the code, that the code doesn't break, that whatever we've done before, as you know, as we call in code development, regression, that you don't suffer a regression, right? So, and there is, let's say, 3 main types of testing for Flutter, okay? One of them is the unit testing, which is, which gives a very low confidence for the app's overall testing. You know, the individual units testing is like what? For example, the individual units is you're using bricks to make a building, and you're making sure that the bricks you use meet a certain standard. So you test a random brick and meet a testing standard, but for the entire building, it means nothing, right? So the unit testing has a low confidence, has a low maintenance cost because it's very compact, and once you've done a unit test, you don't need to touch it unless you have touched something with that code. Dependencies are very few. It doesn't depend on anything, the units, right? They are very standalone, and it's very quick to execute. So you can basically do a whole bunch of unit tests in one go every time before you deploy, and it's very fast. Widget testing is a little bit more involved. The reason is, with the widgets, you have, you can imagine the widgets will have animations, for example. So during testing, at least you'll have to wait for the animation frames to settle, right? You will go and tap things, you will type things in, you will close screens and so on and so forth. So the widget testing is going to be quick, but it has a higher maintenance, and it has more dependencies, because you may have a user widget which depends on the user model, for example. You've made a change to user model, the user display widget is going to break. And then comes the integration testing, which is basically the entire app, right? So you have to run the entire app, you prescribe a script, and you get an answer in terms of the things that you have covered in the app. Okay, so let's start with any questions on this so far, on where we're going. So this is sort of like the overview of what we're doing today with the testing, and hopefully we'll get to also an App Store, Apple App Store testing view. But before that, so the way we're starting today's lecture is, we're removing everything from the app, and I'm just getting a generic page. So I think I've got that here somewhere. Git checkout tag/l. Okay, and let's see if it's, I'm going to shut down the iPhone simulator because that's more temperamental. And let's get this running in the background. Okay, so how does the testing work? The testing works by writing basically another program, right? We write another program that we run Dart in, okay? And for widget testing, you would call test widgets. For unit testing, you will go test. Even though we were going to go to unit testing, I want to show here from with the test widgets, we put a name for the test, and then the test widgets gives us a tester. Because tester is basically our, how should I say, our assistant in testing the widget, right? Because somebody has to go and tap buttons, put in text, etc. So tester is our assistant, our agent, basically, to go and test the widgets, to interact with the widgets. So the test widgets, therefore, gives us the tester, the assistant, and it tells you basically, do whatever you want with that assistant now. okay? And this assistant, we're saying, pump a widget inside. And what is that widget? Is my app. I mean, my entire app I can put in, because my entire app just consists of a generic page at the moment, okay? And then I can run the expect. So this is the logic of it. The logic of it is that we sort of pump in this widget testing and unit testing, we pump in whatever we need to test, and then we run the expect on the page, whatever we need to expect. So for example, we're pumping the widget, my app, into the display, but at that point we don't interact anymore. And all we're expecting is that on the top of the page it says testing start. So let's see if we have that. Okay, so this says testing start. So let's go to our widget test. So this is our widget test. Can you all see? Okay, so this is our widget test, and we should expect this finds one widget. So let's go Flutter test, okay, test / widget test .dart. Okay, so I'm running the test command. Where am I? Oh, sorry, here, all the way to the bottom. Make it a bit up. I'm running the test command, Flutter test / widget.test. So I'm basically given the destination of where that test sits. And now it tells me that all the tests have passed, right? So it pumped the widget inside, all the tests have passed, and for example, what I can say, for example, is that find, so this find thing, finds, sorry. So find dot, okay, by, for example, find by type, okay? So in this page, what widgets do we expect to be there in the generic page?
My app.
Well, there is the my app, exactly. What else? I mean, my app is very specific name, so that is very, very top level. But what else? Scaffold, what else? App bar, and there is the text widget. So, for example, find by type, does it have an app bar? Okay, we can run this. Sorry. And finds one widget, okay? Let's run this quickly.
What is the finds one widget? Where is it coming from?
So finds one widget is basically, it's part of this expect, okay? So it's called a matcher. So finds one widget. For example, if we say expect find dot by type, again, okay, and we give it a, I don't know, column. I think maybe it can have a column. I don't think it has a row. So that should match finds nothing. Okay, let's see if that test will run. Okay, so all the tests have passed. And so that's sort of like the general idea of how to run tests on the device. We'll see in a minute that you can also see the test running, so we'll get there in a second. Okay, so Any questions so far? Yes.
So this is the widget testing.
This was I will get to widget testing more properly, but this was just sort of give you the very sort of feel for what we're doing. So basically we're taking part of our app. In this case, we took all the app, but we're taking part of our app, but we're putting it into the thing, and then we're doing things to it, and then we're looking at expecting what happened. You know, we will have to be clever in writing the test such that we call the right expects, so that we expect the right result, or you know we specify the right way of expecting it. So writing tests becomes also an important exercise because to catch the thing. So we'll come to that. Okay. Let's go back to our thing. So let's go to the unit testing now. We roll back to unit testing, not the widget testing. We have to create a main file, right? And then we have to create a test. We give it a name. And then typically we would instantiate the class or the function. For example, the user model, the user class, okay? If you don't give, you call the user class with certain types of inputs, is it going to go wrong? Is it going to go bust? Is it going to go not do the things that you do? So then you bring in your function or class. Then you do some operations, whatever they are. You do some operations on your functions and class. Then you have to do these expects. You know, I've instantiated my class. I've made some operations like, for example, I called add, I called subtract, I called multiply, whatever. And then I'm running an expect on these things. You know, certain properties of that class have to match my expectation. Okay? So that would be the thing. And then I can run any of these things. So this would be on the user model. This could be on, something else. I can fill this page, and I hit a button every time I deploy my code. I hit a button to make sure that I haven't broken any of these things. Okay? And as you can see, it's very isolated. You just call one class. It's very isolated. It's not interdependent. It's very, very basic. So let's think about a unit test example. Let's think about a counter qubit. Right? A counter qubit, I can define with an internal variable of counter set at 0, and then I have two functions. I mean, let's say this is my counter qubit, has the add and subtract. Okay? And I want to make sure that both of these functions work correctly, and that qubit works correctly. So let's get this into the code. Actually, I haven't. This is the code. This is the code. So in the code, again, I have my main, right? This is the outside, what I showed in the previous 2 slides before, in that one. This is my main. In my main, I instantiate a qubit before I start the tests, but I can instantiate it inside as well, doesn't matter. My test has a name, and because it's a unit test, it doesn't have a tester. So it doesn't have this agent that can go and find widgets or find things and tap into them and so on and so forth. I mean, that's again a bit of an expensive thing. So it doesn't have that. So what we do is that we first say qubit.add. Okay? What should happen is that the counter variable inside the qubit should now be 1. Right? If I call .add on the qubit, so if I call this to the qubit, I initialize the qubit with counter 0. the counter should go to 1 when I call add. Qubit.add, counter should go to 1. Now I can go and check whether it's actually gone to 1. Okay? Now I'm asking qubit.counter, is it 1? Expect it to be 1. If it's not, fail the test. Then the next thing is, let's go subtract. Okay, subtract. Where should the counter go? It should go to 0. Does it go to 0? And yes, it goes to 0 and tests passed. Sorry about this, but this is not much I can do. What's this temperamental? Okay, so let's get the git stash git checkout slash no 1701. Okay, so this is still the no, my thing is here. Okay, so this doesn't use the app anymore. It just runs the it will run the test in the background, and in fact I can close the app because it was it was running the app itself, but the test doesn't run the app itself. Okay, so let's run the test. Now it's no longer widget test, but it's called test.dart. Here, that's the file name, test.dart, and let's see if it runs it. Okay, all tests passed. Let's fail some tests now. Okay, let's fail some tests by expecting the wrong thing. So I'm expecting 1 after I subtract, which is wrong. Okay, so it should fail the test. So let's see what happens if I fail the test. I mean, in this page, basically, I'm expecting 1 after I subtract, and this will fail. So let's see that it fails. Okay, it failed. And what does it tell me when it fails? It tells me that in test.dart line 10 and character 5, I have an error. Okay? Line 10, character 5 is this expect. So basically, this expect has busted. Okay? So obviously, we introduced this ourselves, but in reality, this would be coming from a real problem in the code that you would bust. I just wanted to artificially show you what it looks like when the test failed. Any questions? Yes.
What about can you do mocking in Flutter as well or not?
Mocking?
Mocking, yeah. Like let's say the counter qubit depends on any other service, and you don't want to have to instance because you're not.
Yes, there is. I haven't covered it here. There are certain mocking classes for Firestore, for Oath, and so on and so forth. There are certain ways that you can do it. Mm-hmm. You'll have to probably write your code a little bit. Okay, so for example, if you injected Firebase Oath into your, for the integration testing, if you inject Firebase Oath at the very top level to your code, permanently, then when you want to mock Firebase Oath, and you go mock Firebase Oath, when you're creating the test case, the test widgets or test parts of your code, you won't be able to inject them. So you need to be able to use the Firebase Oath in such a way that you should be able to inject. For example, my app, right? you instantiate my app, and then you inject Firebase auth in it. But what you could do is you could define Firebase auth above my app, and then my app gets Firebase auth as a variable. In which case, when you are instantiating your app from the test, you can inject the mock inside it. Okay? We haven't covered it here, but just to answer your question. So, questions about this unit test? Because we're going to go to widget test now a little bit. Let's see what we have here. So let's get the code. Okay. All right. Let's look at the widget testing now. Okay. Widget testing, as I mentioned, is a little bit different. And how is it different? This test widget gives us this tester, which is our agent in dealing with these widgets, in tapping them or writing into them or dragging them or whatever, scrolling them. Right? It's an important thing, the scrollability, etc. So let me see. Yeah. So we have this agent now. We again have to, so these green boxes are our requests, our things to do, right? And then so that after we make those changes, we can go and do expect. Did you do them, right? And the thing is, one little thing is that a widget by its own, right, without this thing called the material behind it, is not going to work. So you need to, you can basically just take whatever widget it is, for example, a user card, a list tile, whatever it is, you can take that widget and just stick it into a material app scaffold, simply, not your entire app structure, again, very lightweight material. And then you have your widget in the body of that scaffold, and it's just, it just makes it checkable, okay? So these are the type of things, find the widget inside this, find the widget inside here, tap, scroll, find other widgets, etc. All of these things can be done without actually firing up the app or anything. So one of the a convenience thing I put in is I create this function, create widget. All it takes is takes a child and puts it inside the material app scaffold. Okay, so that I have something that the machine can render. And then, what is my test case? Okay, so our test case is, okay, I want to test this. You remember the user list tile we created, right? It takes the user object, okay, and it displays the user first name, last name, and then email on the bottom, and then the first name, last name, initials as a inside the avatar, right? That's what it displays. So therefore, if I do the pump widget thing, so create widget just creates the wrapper around it. This is my target, user list tile. And inside it, I'm passing a user, johndoe@doe.com, image URL, and user ID, some text, okay? And once this widget has been painted on the screen, what am I expecting to find? I'm expecting to find a text widget, which is find.text, containing John Doe, which is the the user list style, the top one. Then I'm also expecting to find a JD in the avatar, because the avatar is displaying the initials JD, and both of them find one widget. And I'm also expecting to find the email address in a text widget. So find.text means any text-like widget, which could be a rich text, a text, or there's a few other, any text-like widget that displays this information, right? It's not specific to. Otherwise, if it had to be a text widget, then you would say find by type text, and then you would have to do further find by, etc. But this is obviously a very convenient thing to say find that text, because that's what you need. Okay, so let's see if this thing will run. So this is our test. Let's see if this will run. Oops. Okay. Oh, I'm running the test. Sorry, it has to be the widget test. Some tests have failed. That's interesting. I wasn't expecting this. Okay, sorry, this is the correct one in the example, JD. Okay, all tests have passed, okay, which is what I expect, which is, John Doe, JD, etc. It's all going to pass. Now, this is good. So the next one I want to test is a little bit different, right? The next thing I want to test is I want to give a last name an empty string, right? If I give a last name an empty string, what would I expect? I would expect the text to be, the display name to be just John, right? I would expect the avatar to just say J, right? Meaningful. And then the email address is the email address. Okay, so let's do that. Let's give an empty string here and expect this to be John and this to be J. Okay, so is it going to pass? We don't know. Or actually, we just saw a few minutes ago that it doesn't pass. Okay, so what didn't pass? So the 45 didn't pass. Find text John didn't pass. Okay, so let's look at the implementation of user list style. So this is basically one way for you to write the test coverage. Okay, so for example, you've created a user card, which takes a user object and then amalgamates, various parts. What are the different test cases? He has only one first name. He has just one last name. He has, I don't know. He has given both of the names empty. Okay, and so on and so forth. What do you need to do in those type of cases? So let's look at the implementation of user list style, and it will be obvious. Okay, so the user list style, as you can see here, it prints the first name and last name with a gap in it. Okay, so it means that when I send it with a John Doe, as a John as the name with the last name and empty string, what it will print is the first name and then a space. But what I was expecting, right? What I was expecting is just this, just John without the space. And that's where it's failing. So in fact, if I do this now and run the test again, it should pass that stage. Does it say which line? Am I getting blind? Do you guys see the line it broke? Line 46. Okay? So line 45 didn't break. Okay? But line 46 broke. So somehow the avatar didn't work with the J. Okay? And whereas in the other case, we didn't have all this drama coming from Flutter, right? Let's go back to this case. Back to this case. So pay attention here. In this case, wait a minute, where the right test? Sorry, let me clear this. Oh, I still have the drama. I have the drama because of the avatar. We will see in the avatar what's the problem. So to see this, invalid value range is empty 0. So we're somehow trying to tap a value where index is, we're tapping an index 0, but there is nothing there, which makes sense because the last name is now an empty string. And if we're trying to fish out the first character of it, it's going to break, right? So let's see if we go to the user avatar, right? What it's doing is it's taking the first name 0 and the last name 0 and putting them together and printing them on the screen. Obviously, it's going to break if I give a empty string as the last name. So in fact, probably if I did this, if I gave a space for the last name, it should pass the test. Or it shouldn't break, huh? Tell me. It should probably do this. This should pass the test, right? Oh, sorry. What am I doing? John and M. So sorry. This is John. I'm mixing up the parts where I need to test. Okay, so the first name is John. Last name is a space. Then the display name will have to be like this, and the other avatar should be J and empty, right? This one. So let's see if this will pass. Okay, so this passes, right? So it makes sense. But the good thing is the expected behavior, which is what I would expect in this case, it should be able to work like this, is not passing. So on the user avatar, I need to make certain changes, okay? So I'll, again, this value range is the thing. So these are the telltales. And then here we see this, what we talked about. And now I need to make some changes to this user avatar to be able to handle this correctly. So if the first name is not, so is not empty is again, you don't have to search for the length equals 0 or not 0. There is a convenience called is not empty on the string type. Then I'm going to add to the initials the first name. And then again, if the last name is not empty, I'm going to add to the initials the last name, right? And then if initials are like this, if there is nothing, so if I haven't been able to add anything, then I'm just going to return initials as a dash, right? That's the way I want to handle it. It should just show a dash. It shouldn't show an empty thing. It should tell the user that it hasn't been supplied. Because if you just show a dot or a circle with nothing in it, the user will not understand what it is. But a dash, they will understand that it's probably missing some data. And let's run this test again. We made these changes. I think I need to git stash. Check out, I think it's here. Okay, so this is implemented here, this stuff. And let's make sure that our widget test is the same. So we're checking for the case John, empty last name. And I'm expecting, sorry, I shouldn't have these things here. Going ahead of ourselves. So this is our test case, right? John, empty last name. This one should give me a John, a J, and john@do.com. All right? So it passed it because I've already changed something. Sorry about that. So the problem was that it shouldn't have passed, but anyway, because of the thing I pulled. So our display name has this space in it, okay? And it shouldn't have the space in it actually if the last name is empty. So therefore, what I've actually done in the other code is I've added this thing to my display name. Normally my display name is this, and I'm putting the display name inside the text. But now what I'm doing is I'm preparing the display name like this, but if the last name is empty, there will be an empty space in it at the last, okay? By adding trim to it, I can get rid of that empty space, so it will be just the user.first name. If instead the user.first name is missing, and I have only the last name, it will have an empty space in the beginning, which again I don't want. I can get rid of with the trim. And if both of them are empty, after the trim, I'm going to get empty string. So then, if the string is empty, I want to give a dash. Okay? So, in the case that both names are empty, I should find two texts with dash in them. Okay? I mean, these are very, how should I say, very tedious things, but when you're developing proper code, these are the things that you need to really think about, okay? Or somebody needs to think about it in the team to these things. So, coming back to widget test, this passes. So what are the other, so let's look at all the other cases. Actually, we can look at it here. So, what are all the cases? John Doe should give me JD and John space Doe. John nothing should give me J and John. Nothing and Doe should give me D and Doe. Nothing and nothing should give me a dash and a dash. Okay, so this is all my cases, laid out that I should cover for. And covering all these cases, so these are then all those cases. So case one, full name, John and Doe given. That's the case one. You find John Doe, JD, and the email. Next one, John and empty last name. Okay, it's this one, needs to pass. Next one, empty first name, last name Doe, this has to pass. And this is the more interesting one. because if I don't give any first name and last name, if it has only the email, then I'm going to get in the avatar and in the display name both a dash, which is find.text John at find.text dash, and instead of saying finds 1, now I say finds exactly 2. Okay? So that's basically all my tests cover for this widget, which is a good thing, because every time when you deploy, you run this, you have the confidence, if somebody breaks it somewhere, you're going to catch this. Okay? So this is how you need to think about unit/widget tests, that it gives you a good confidence that these things don't break. All right, break time for 10 minutes, and then we will go into integration testing and also the Apple Testflight. Or any questions so far before we break? No questions. Okay. How is the app going? Is it going? Yeah? You guys are very quiet.
This is just the
and then just using GitHub, because you said that you broke the app and then you couldn't go before. You should do a change and commit. Do a change and commit. If something goes wrong.
Professor? When we come back. Professor? Thanksgiving. Oh my god. Professor?
You know how to use it? How to create a branch for that start? So that if it
Professor,
breaks,
I have a question.
Can you
Okay.
share the
What's the order of presentations for week 10?
Are we now bargaining on who is presenting last?
I'm just asking.
I think what we can do is that we can make sure that, it's just the last class. We do, like, everybody does all the presentation. Maybe what we can do is on Tuesday, we can do whatever is ready yet, and then on Thursday it could be the finish. Right? We spend Tuesday like that, and then I can be available to help you guys fix last few things. But it would really be good if by Thursday in 2 days, if you could come and find me, and I'll be all day in the office on Thursday, right, from the morning. So you can come and find me and discuss anything with the app, any bottlenecks that you face.
I was thinking if we do sports, what we can do is...
Well, what about all your colleagues that are willing to show you all their apps?
But when someone plans an event, they can...
and you have to cheer, and then,
teams being built up beforehand. So I was thinking we can display like a field, and then you can pick position or show people's positions in
China.
In it.
Where? In the US.
We can do like three at a time. We do like for phase 1, we can do soccer, baseball. I was thinking
there's baseball, there's soccer, there's volleyball.
Back end.
like something like that. So let's say right, so we could be like I can pick my position, and then people can, and we can also have
That's it.
and people can, as they register, they can basically select, they can bring spots and whatnot. What do you guys? Can you guys do the design of it? think a sport like baseball will benefit a lot because there's a lot of planning. Right? Like if we all get together and we don't have, and we're missing like I don't know a catcher or something, then we can play basically. Right? Like,
这个没什么好
Football
argue
you just need a ball.
是我错
Volleyball you just need a ball. I mean, like if they already have a court book for the game, then they definitely will be.
yeah, but let's say they go to like a beach or something, then you need to bring the net, I guess.
నేను ఇప్పుడు వెళ్ళాలా తమ్ముడు ఏం పని
ఇవన్నీ వేసుకుని వెళ్తే సౌండ్
బేస్బాల్ చేద్దాం అలా
Neat. How is the NFC going? Did you guys make any progress? Did it work at all? Or?
We haven't had it tested.
Okay.
你这么大还都是别打勾。
ట్యాగ్ రీడర్స్ దీంట్లో ఉంటాయి కదా మనం స్నాప్ చేస్తుంటే పడేదాన్ని రీడింగే కదా బ్లూటూత్ వీ కెన్ యూజ్ నియర్ కనెక్టివిటీ బ్లూటూత్ ఎక్కడన్నా వాడచ్చు
我就搞了。就那个 login， 它那个 flow 也有点奇怪。我上次不是讲过那个什么sign out， 是弹出来还是再来个配置？
早鸟优惠。
బేసికల్ ఏంటంటే నీకు గేమ్ ఉంటే అరే
怎么怎么分？不是自己做什么 UI 就自己写什么。
框架是什么？
గేమ్ డిక్లేర్ చేశారు
డిఫరెంట్ గేమ్స్ డిఫరెంట్ గ్రూప్స్ ఉంటాయా
డిఫరెంట్ గేమ్సే పెట్టు డైరెక్ట్గా దానికి గ్రూప్స్ ఉంటాయి ఆ గ్రూప్లో గేమ్ జరుగుతుందని అనౌన్స్మెంట్ వచ్చింది
చాట్ లాగా అది
చాట్ లాగా కాదు నోటిఫికేషన్స్ బాగా ఇండియాలో ఎప్పుడు వాళ్ళు బేసికలీ వాటిలో ఏంటంటే ఇక్కడ గేమ్ జరుగుతుంది అని అడిగితే నువ్వు కూడా నీ అంతటి నువ్వు ఒక గేమ్ క్రియేట్ చేయొచ్చు స్లాట్స్ ఉంటాయి ఖాళీగా బ్యాడ్మింటన్ ఉందనుకో 2 players స్లాట్స్ అవైలబుల్ అని అడిగితే సో నువ్వు దాని మీద నొక్కుతావు ఆ ఒక ప్లేయర్గా జాయిన్ అవుతావు
是作业要考试。
అదే డౌట్
ఇప్పుడే
సేమ్ అమాంగ్
行吧，
试一试吧，先不行再说。
我们礼拜五开个会，然后回来之后礼拜一再开个会。
ఒకటే అది కాకుండా కాలేజ్ బేస్డ్ చేద్దాం అనుకుంటున్నాం ప్రతి యూనివర్సిటీకి ఇప్పుడు మన కాలేజ్కి ఏమేమి ఉన్నాయి వాలీబాల్
బాస్కెట్బాల్ ఉంది
రోయింగ్
టెన్నిస్
వర్క్ డే టైప్
బేస్బాల్ ఎందుకు లేదు
బాస్కెట్బాల్ బేస్బాల్ ఉంది కాదన్నా స్టీవెన్ స్కాట్ అంటే అదే కదా పెద్ద గేదెలా
అది better.
వర్క్ డే లాగా అట్లా
నైస్
ఆ కాలేజ్లోనే ఎవరైనా స్లాట్ బుక్ చేసుకుంటే ఆడుకోవడానికి
不2点半到3点，我可以改个周四。
ఇది లాంటిది
因为我也没空，所以刚好
啊，那很
కోడ్ బుకింగ్ కాదు కోడ్ బుకింగ్ కాదు యాక్చువల్లీ
11点
గేమ్ బుకింగ్
11点
ఇప్పుడు
12点。
నాకు వాలీబాల్
మిగతా వేరే చోట్ల కోడ్ బుక్ చేసుకోవచ్చు మన కాలేజ్
现在就来订吧。
Where's he going?
So do you have time?
Let's start.
I increase this. I try to like set up the structure, like go louder,
Good. Let's start.
so that everyone can get started. Otherwise, put in library.
చెప్పురా ఇడికి
Did you share the GitHub link? Yeah.
Okay.
Did you want everybody as contributors?
So let's talk about a few more things that we can do with this widget testing. So let's also involve scroll behavior. Okay? Scroll behavior. So we put a scrollable widget on the screen and then make sure that it behaves properly, etc. So for that, the first thing we do is we create a list view. Okay, so the create user list creates a list view. It generates 20 user list styles in it, right? Generates 20 user list styles, and the way it creates those list styles is the index of that list, which starts from 0 goes to 19, is used in creating the first name and the last name. So it will start with first 0, last 0 as the last name, and email will be first 0, last 0.com. Okay? And first one, last one, first two, last two, etc. So now we have this user list tiles on the screen. And then remember we had this create widget which wraps a material and scaffold around it. Okay? And so we're going to run it like this. So we have this create widget function which wraps the material app. Create user list is this function that creates this list view. We haven't started testing yet. We're just creating the widgets that we want to test in this case. And then our test will be this. So our test will be, the pump widget. You remember the pump widget? It basically puts the widget into the widget tree, right, of the tester. And then pump and settle is a command for you to wait for all the animation frames are finished. So pump and settle is something that you call for all the animation frames to finish, to wait for it to finish, for the tester to wait to finish. Therefore, you call them with a wait, okay? And then the things we should see is that we should find a list view widget by type. We should find a list view widget, just one. And then we should find a text which says first 0 space last 0. We should also find that. So that would be the first element in the list view, okay? So let's run this. Okay, it passed. So it created this and it passed. Now, there is another way to run this test where we can see things happening on the screen, okay? And that's the following. If you say Flutter run test widget test.dart, so instead of Flutter test where we don't see anything in the UI, if we say Flutter run, it will ask us which device do you want me to run it on, okay? It's actually running it on the Android emulator. Let's get this emulator in the front. So it ran it on the Android emulator in the sense that it created a screen, but actually it didn't create it. It didn't create the Android screen. As you can see, the scaffold that we gave it, because we said material app, scaffold, and list view. Normally, in a normal phone deployment, it would use the entire screen, but it doesn't. So the tester uses some default screen size, whatever, to test this thing. And it has painted the list view on the screen, okay? So the next thing we can do is we can make it fling, okay? So fling the list view, so it finds the widget list view, and it does this fling, basically meaning scrolling. And how much should I fling? Okay, by offset 0 minus 200. 0 to 100, in the x direction, nothing. In the y direction, minus 200. So I should go down, basically, or scroll up, or go down into the list view, or bring the bottom part of the list view into view, okay? And this 400, I think that's how many pixels per second or something. You can look it up here, actually. Speed. Does it say the speed here? The speed is in pixels per second in the direction given by offset. So 400 pixels per second, meaning that it's going to be, the entire thing is probably 400. So in 1 second, it should scroll up. So what we should see now in the tester, if we run it in the same mode, so I think I'm going to try to do a Shift R, because it says here, hot restart is Shift R. If I do a Shift R, what I should see is this one coming up and then scrolling up. So let's have a look. Did it actually scroll up? Huh? It didn't. So look. Okay, let's wait a second. Okay, so you've seen, now what I can do is, so it creates it, it waits for 2 seconds, it scrolls it up, and then it's still waiting for, I don't know, 100,000 milliseconds, just to show you this behavior. So what did we see here? We can test widgets also by putting it on the screen and actually watching the tester do the job that it needs to do. So now what we can see is that to ensure that this scrolling has happened, first 0 and last 0 should disappear from my screen, correct? So therefore, if I run this part of the test, that the first zero, last zero after this thing is not being found, it should also pass, right? So I remove this pump and settle, and I also reduce this to 100, whatever, just to make it quick. To Shift R, all tests passed, okay? So in this case, with all the tests passed. So now if I do the reverse after this, and then again do the pump and settle, I do the reverse by plus 200, and now I need to find this, right? So now I scroll down, I cannot find it. I scroll back up, I find it. Then, I'm just testing some of the things. So the use case, you have to define, obviously, what is the use case for your particular situation. But this is just showing up, down, and all test pass. Okay, so you're actually watching the UI as this thing has happening. But the UI, again, in the widget test, it's not the actual phone. It's this arbitrary thing. Probably it's written somewhere in the docs, what's the size of this thing. Maybe it's possible to change it, but that's beyond, that's not that interesting at the moment. But this is the idea. So any questions on this? So we've done a find text, very simple thing on the widget. But then we've done a little bit more complicated. We actually scroll the widget, make sure that it goes out of the viewport, comes back into the viewport, and so on and so forth. I think it's quite a powerful tool. Any questions? No? Okay, let me see what's next. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is testing tap. Okay.
So I'm going to attach a database to event the login page and this thing is you have to verify the email place and then I need to put the code and then get to the website.
I think Ahmad would be. I don't think he's done emails yet.
Okay. For the tab, I'm extending my list tile. The list tile widget has a on tap property, so you can assign a function to tapping a list tile, which is a normal behavior on the phone. And all I'm doing is I'm finding the scaffold messenger of the context, and I'm showing a snack bar saying this display name has been added. Okay, so saying that this display name is added. And when the display name is added, the snack bar also has a text in it, right? Because the snack bar, the content is a text widget. And so I should be able to see that on the screen. So let's play that out as well. So this is my test. So the list view, finding on the list view, on the scrolling, not finding, scrolling back, finding, and the last thing is after finding it, I tap it. But pay attention to how I find the tappable object. Okay, the tester.tap requires an object to tap, okay? Or tester.fling requires an object. So in this case, I'm finding by type user list style, but because there is 20 of them, I'm selecting the first one, okay? So it's just the way to find things. Let's see this thing run. We can use again this UI run. It's more informative. So it's building it for this, but again on that small screen. Installing it. Okay, scroll up, scroll down, and then tap the first one. And you'll see the small snack bar that appeared, and it says all tests passed. Okay, so another behavior, the scrolling, tapping, and things that happen after that are all things that we need for the test. Questions? No? You understand everything? Okay. Very good. Very good. And I think there was one more thing on this that I want. Oh, this is the more interesting one, integration testing. Now we're going to a slightly different world, okay? For integration testing, we have to create a directory called integration test, and then we create our test files in it. So let's go to my code. Let's bring the code back. Bring the tag. Okay, so I can get rid of the widget test. So now in my directory, I have this folder called integration test, okay? And the integration test is, in this case, app test, okay? Now, I'm testing my entire app, but I've actually put something into the app. So let's have a look what I did put into the app to be able to test the Firestore. So in the pages, I've created a Firestore test page, which is what the main material app calls. So the material app calls the Firestore test page. And let's see what is on the Firestore test page. So the Firestore test page has a button which adds data. Okay? And then once it adds data, it does the set state so that this text says data added true. Okay, that's one thing that this page does. You click on that button, add data, it goes to Firebase Firestore, into the collection, whatever, it adds this data. And then when it adds the data, it gets a reference. Okay, so that's the reference to the document I just created. So I'm testing now. If it breaks, if, for example, my database properties, my Firebase options properties, any other thing in my app is wrong, right? If I messed up something about the Firebase connection, this is going to bust here. At this stage, it will say, no, I can't connect to this database. I can't put it in, okay? So I get my reference, and then I change this thing. So the first thing I should test is that after I click this add button, whether this text data added changes to true. That's one of the things. Then I click a retrieve data, okay? And the retrieved data is a document snapshot that I get from this by accessing the reference, right? I'm basically doing a write and read back operation. And then from this data, I pull out this first name, that's the parameter I entered into the database. And and I should display it in this first name variable in this text, okay? So I can now text all of these steps in my integration test, okay? So that's what this page is doing. And of course, somebody has to go and hit these buttons, right? Hit the button, wait for the database insertion to happen because these are asynchronous functions. Wait for them to happen and then see the result or check the result, okay? So that's all inside this apptest.dart. Sorry, go to the slides. So the app test is actually just similar to the widget testing, but the only thing is we're putting in the entire app. And is there anything else I need to tell you there? Okay, so what is the test routine that I need to do here? First of all, I need to find a widget of type filled button. So this is a new type of a find function, widget with text. So it's saying basically find a widget of certain type that has this text on it. So basically a filled button which says add data on it is the object that I need to tap, okay? All right, tap that. And then pump and settle, basically wait for all the animations to finish and wait for effectively 3 seconds. And then make sure that you find this data added true. Then tap the button, retrieve the data. Again, wait for 3 seconds. Then find that it's data retrieved true and also first name John. So that means that all the things that we are expecting it to happen have happened. So let's see this run. I hope I haven't. So when you first do this, it will give an exception because the Firebase initialization in our normal app, so in our regular app, so let's go to our regular app. So this is my regular app, right? The main, before calling my app, it does the initialization, okay? So pay attention. The regular app, the regular thing that's running, we have the main, which is the entry point, and then before it brings the my app into view, it actually does the Firebase initialization. But in our test case, so in this, let's leave this on the screen, in this apptest.dart, our main app, okay, I've put it there, but when you first, if you did it without having put this stuff into your main app in the testing thingy, then it would give an error. So you basically have to initialize the Firebase before you start doing your testing. Okay, that's a important thing. Anyhow, so let's see this this run. Flutter. Not sure if test will work. Let's see. So you see what happened. It even though we said Flutter test, it actually fired up the app. Okay, and it's still trying to do some tests. All tests are passed. Okay, so let's put a wait here so that we see this last step. Do this again. So the integration test, and you see also this build app outputs Flutter APK. So actually it builds the app okay, and loads it onto the device. So it loaded onto the device. It clicks the add data. Okay, it should show data added true. In a second, yes. Now it clicks retrieve data. It should now say retrieve data true, and then first name is John written on it. So all the things that we asked it to do is done. So all the tapping and everything that we ask it to do, the integration test does it. But as you can see, it's more cumbersome. You know, it needs a device to run, and it won't run without a device, etc. Okay. So that is that. Any questions on the integration test? And again, we've run this thing with real Firebase because we've actually run our real app. You know, we haven't run a widget standalone somewhere. We've actually run our real app here with the real connection to the database. Of course, at this point, what Josian, you were asking earlier, at this point, when I'm doing this tester.pump widget my app, this is where I could inject the mocks. So my default could be, I mean, if I don't inject the mock, it uses Firebase auth. But if I inject a mock auth, it uses that one. So if I write my app like that, then I can make sure that for the testing, I don't disturb the actual Firebase databases or authentication databases, okay? Questions? Okay. So what I want to do next, okay, so all of that is here in these slides. You should have that. Okay, even though this says Google Play and Apple App Store, it actually only has Google App Store here. So maybe let me remove this from the title. Okay, if I get to it, I'll also put some stuff about Google Play. Okay, guys, one of the important things that you will have to do for your apps is launcher icons, right? And it's a slightly painful thing to do if you were to do it by hand. But there is this package called Flutter Launcher Icons, okay? And what this package does is that you give it one design, you know, relatively large, you know, 1,000 by 1,000 or 1024 by 1024, and you place it in two places, into assets, icons here. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly these, but you know, this is a good way to play. So you place it in two places. One is, this is usually used for Android and iOS, and this one is used for the web. Okay, so this is where you put that icon files, the PNG files. Next, you go into your PubSpec YAML, right? To this PubSpec YAML, you know the PubSpec YAML, this one, right? You go in here, and somewhere, obviously not on this one. Hold on, let's pull this. This will need a stash. 1 second. It's here somewhere. Okay, so it's this part. So in your YAML file, you create these entries. So image path, that's the assets icons launcher icon. For Android, create. For iOS, create. Now this is some peculiarity for Apple. Don't ask me exactly what it is, but this remove alpha iOS. So basically, the alpha channel needs to be removed from the file. And you know what an alpha channel is? it's the transparency channel of the thing of the image. Anyway, so you remove the iPhone channel, so you put this to true, and then for the web, generate the path, the background color, theme color. It creates those web images for you as well. Okay, so, but how do we make it create those images? Is by running this command. So the Flutter launcher icons is not a package that you put into your app, but it's just a routine that creates these files and puts them in the right place. Okay, so I'm giving an image like this for my launcher icon, and then when I go to Xcode and see all the different icon sizes and everything, it's all populated immediately, okay? So it's a massive convenience for you. And similarly, for Android, you see these under App SRC main resources, you have all these different resolution icons, and they are placed in those places. And for the web, for example, it creates your fav icon. I think this is 32 by 32 or something. It's not, obviously it squashes everything down. But yeah, so you have all those icons sorted out. So that's step number 1 in pushing something to the App Store. So step number 2, you go to your developer account, Apple App Store, and I think you now have, anybody who has sent me this form, I've put them on the App Store, and I've created also your apps, okay, with your IDs, so you can, and you should have received the invitation to join the developer account. So, but in general, what you want to do is you want to go to the certificates, choose the app IDs, make sure that you're in app IDs, and create an app ID. You put your app name and your bundle ID, okay, to create app ID. So that's step number 1. So you first create the bundle ID. This is not your app yet. Then you go to new app. So you go to the button where it says an app. Then you put in all these things, and you have to choose the bundle ID that you've already created from the drop-down. So the bundle ID should have been created before. You give an SKU. This is you can give anything, but give some number that sort of makes sense. Now you've created the app. Okay? And what you have to do is you go to your Xcode settings, right? You go to Xcode settings, and in the settings, you'll have to come to this accounts tab. And here you have your personal team, which is like your personal user thing, which is not connected to developer account, but you should also have a developer account here. So if you have been provisioned for the developer account as I invited you, when you open, I think we checked this. You saw this, right, when we opened it. Remember? In your Xcode, right? So you have this thing over here. Then you should click on this Manage Certificates to make sure that you have a distribution certificate here. Okay? And this distribution certificate is saved in your keychain, Apple keychain. And your Apple keychain works with your Apple laptop login password. So if you want to retrieve something from the keychain, you would have to open it with your login password, and you will need to retrieve it because when Xcode is signing this thing for distribution, it will try to go get this distribution certificate from your keychain, and it will ask you for that permission. It will ask you that login. In your PubSpec YAML file, this version is 100 plus 1. So the 1 is a build number, and 100 is the Apple build version, which you'll see in a second, where it fits into the Apple thingy. Now it's building time. And to build, you call Flutter build IPA. Okay, it's the iOS archive that you're building, Flutter build IPA. It takes a little bit of time, but it gets built and it gets placed into this directory. It gets placed into build iOS IPA directory. It gets placed. And there are two ways to push it up. So one of them is this Apple Transporter app. I mean, I use this, it's convenient. The other one is this more complicated one. I've never tried this. You're welcome to try it. I'll show you the one with the thing. Now, as I said, while it's trying to build this thing, it will ask you for this Apple distribution. It will try to use the Apple distribution key, and for it, it asks for a login key chain. It's not your Apple ID password, it's your laptop password, okay? Now, in the build iOS IPA directory, that's the IPA file. And in the Transporter app, I just add this thing. So basically, yeah, so the Transporter app, this is already delivered. You call add app, this one, and then it adds this app to send, okay? Close this. Okay, so this is already sorted out, but when I was pushing this up, I got this type of error. It didn't accept it. And it says, it can't be transparent or contain an alpha channel. A large app icon in the asset catalog runner.app. So one of these icons it didn't like, so that's why I went back and put in the remove alpha channel thing for the iOS. Possibly there is more restrictions and more things coming with iOS 18. I'm not running iOS 18 here, so this is not be an and all of the issues, but you know, right, so this is what I mentioned to you earlier. Now, this is the part where you go to your app. So this is the app that we just created. You go to that app page, and in the app page, you have distribution Testflight Xcode Cloud. We'll talk about that later. So in the distribution, the app is defined, but there is no build on it yet. Even though we uploaded the build to the App Store, it doesn't mean it got attached to the app. So with this add build, I can now put this build into some queue, okay? And when I say add build, it looks at all the uploaded builds, and I can select it to add it into the thing. I think you will have here, so this thing, there's some laws about the US encryption algorithms or exporting of strong encryption algorithms or something. I never fully understand that. But anyway, it will ask you some, what should I say, some statement that you're not exporting, you know, top secret encryption algorithms. And you say no, then this is fine, and you can click done to add the build. So now when you've added the build, now the version 1.00, and remember this 2 is that plus number, so that's called the build number. So before you actually push this to the App Store, so for example, this is ready to submit, okay? this is build number 2. You submit it, and then App Store guys say, actually, I don't like it. Change this little thing, okay? But it could be like add a privacy thingy here, add this, add that, or whatever. I mean, or maybe you found some error. In that case, you can just submit another build here. But the final submitted app, or final submitted app to the App Store, which users can download, cannot have the same version number but different build number. So the build number is only for the stage, the plus, so 1.0.0 plus something is only for the stage where you are trying to get that version in front of the client. So this is ready to submit, but we're not submitting yet, because submitting is a very, very cumbersome process. You have to do a lot of things, fill a lot of forms and so on and so forth. We're not going to do that. But what we're going to do is we're going to click this test flight. We're going to click this test flight, and we're going to add people to internal testing. Okay? So I'm going to click on this internal testing button and create a new internal group for internal testing. So CSEN demo app testers, that's the group I create. Okay? And then who should be, so now that the group has been created, which testers should be in there? Click on this, and these testers, I select one of these testers to be in there. So I could have up to 100 people. Now, this build, it was ready to submit. Now it has a group that is going to test this, or is invited to test it. And now what does that invite look like? So in your mailbox, you will get this, so-and-so has invited you to test this app. Okay, you click on it, and it says view in Testflight. You see this in the Testflight app, do you want to accept it? And when you get this, actually, you can also tell the testers what to test. So part of this, no test knows, but there's also things what to test, and also users have the ability to respond back on things. So once you accept it, it appears in your Testflight app as various apps that you're testing. It's on the list, and you can launch the app from here. And when you launch the app, it's not there. But anyway, when you launch the app, it's in your file. So let me show you from here. If nobody has seen this Testflight before, so it's a little bit small, but so you click on Testflight, and your apps are listed here. If you're testing multiple apps, you just click open, and this is our test app. So this is the last version of the app that we were working with, and it's in my iPhone. It's the same as any other app that you've downloaded to the App Store, so it has all the same functionality, all the same connections. The only thing is it's not available on the App Store search. So my idea with your final apps was to put it into Testflight so that you can have it on your phone and play with it and show it. So if you want this, you should make sure that you create this IPA. And I think with your developer permissions that I've given you, you should be able to push these things up. If not, tell me, and then I'll change the permissions. But you should have the permissions to push it up. Okay. Questions? So Android, I didn't get to, but
Does Android have something similar?
Huh?
Does Android have something similar, I'm guessing?
Android is also very similar. So let me just show you quickly. You go to Play Console. You see my screen, right? Yeah. Okay, so your developer account, so you go to your developer account, and in the developer, remember we had this Santa Clara app, the template app, which was put here. So this app is still in the internal testing phase. So basically, release overview. If you go to release overview, it's in the internal testing phase. So if with a link, you can send it to people, to testers, so it's available to internal testers. It was uploaded on October 27th, okay? And if you click here, you will see the various details. What you would have to do is that you would have to submit a few more information to get it to open testing. So it works a little bit differently than Testflight. So in Testflight, you do this, whereas in the other one, for internal testing, you have to send a link, okay? And what do you need to do to release the app? So you have this release dashboard. Hold on one second. Oh, you go to dashboard, get started setting your app. So these are all the things that you need to do. View tasks, okay? Privacy policy. App access, for Google to review, does it have to punch in some passwords, usernames, etc.? Ads, what type of ads? Content rating, target. So you have to fill all of this information before you can get your app to a beta testing mode, okay? Or you can keep it in the internal testing mode and just send a link for people to do it. But, one more thing before I stop. So I think, yeah, so the app bundle is placed here. Just trying to see. Create new release, okay? So to create a new release, so we have 1.00. To create a new release, I go create new release, and then I just need to upload an APK file, okay? Just like the IPA file, I build the Android, I place it here, and then I can go and put a release name. I would put 1.0.1 or whatever, any release notes that I wanted to see. Then I would have the new release of this app. But I would have to choose which where to put it. Oh, yes. One more thing is the signing key. So where was this? I have to find this app signing. I'll have to find this. But the thing is, for app signing, for app distribution, you have to create a key, okay? And that key you lodge here. So let me show you. I think it's in the Santa Clara app that I had this. Okay, here. So in the build Gradle, you have these sign-in configs. So there's a key store, key alias, key password, etc. And where these values are coming from, they are coming from this file, key.properties file. So my key properties are held in this file, and I have this upload key store, and it's not, pushed to Git, and and it uses these parameters when it's doing the building. It uses these parameters to sign the app with that key, and that key has to come from Google, from your developer account. You have to bring it to your phone, to your machine, so that you can use that key to sign your app, so Google knows that it's you, etc., etc. Okay.